Good evening, Mr. Stern. Can you see the screen?
I can, sir.
Okay, believe you're ready.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the special meeting to order at 7:06. Roll call, Ms. Bertinio, please.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Present.
Mr. Richard Beltz, Mr. Richard Beltz,
Rusty had texted me that he had not received a link and he tried to reach out to you, Janine.
I did resend it to him.
Okay, great, thanks.
He's actually,
Thank you.
he's in the
Ms.
meeting.
Barbara Bose,
Hold on, he's in the
Present.
meeting. He's in the meeting. He's in
Mr.
under.
David Bradley,
I am
Mr.
here.
David
and-
Bradley,
I am here and Rusty is in attendance in the meeting. He has his hand raised.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Present.
Mr. Stephen Holland, Mr. Stephen Holland, absent. Mrs. Gail Mahalik, Mrs. Gail Mahalik, okay, I see you, Gail, but I can't hear you. Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Here,
Mr. Larry Stern.
Here.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Beltz is present as a panelist. Mr. Beltz, can you hear us?
I think I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're as a panelist.
Okay, thank you. I'm here.
All right, and the purpose of this special meeting was a request for a special meeting regarding a discussion on student safety, and we'll go into presentations. We'll start off with Mr. Bradley. I believe the first item will be the YouTube presentation from Mr. Bradley.
Yes, we will click on that and show the presentation. Just to confirm, are you able to see the presentation?
I am.
Sunday, November 26th, approximately 11 p.m. I worked a couple hours, but the Board of School Directors requested I present my presentation to the public prior to the meeting and make sure it's recorded and available because they're going to go as a virtual meeting, not an in-person meeting. Let me share that with you here. Out of the way. So basically, I requested a meeting. I've done this several times to try to hold our board accountable. Now we've got a full complement of board members, and the special meeting was called by Larry Stern. So we had Barb Bose, Gail Mahalik, Joy Beers, David Bradley, and Richard Bell, all agreeing to have a special meeting on Wednesday, September 29th at 7 p.m. in the boardroom. All agreed to it. Specific to student safety, specific to some of the bullying issues, fixing our hazing policy, and then adjusting the means to which the board can be engaged by our stakeholders. Let's go through this. And I'll try to be quick because we can all look at this at any time. But basically, I asked for a meeting, see attached Safe Schools report. Now, the Safe Schools report comes from the Department of Education. You can pull them right up online. There they go. They go by, you just pull up the website and you pull up Lehighton, and every time you click on it, it will download right here, downloads a file and it just gives you the report. Okay. So Safe School reports, corresponding board agenda and the policies, right? So the board meeting is for the board to act in compliance of our existing LASD policy. So I'm giving you the presentation so that we as a community can hold our public servants accountable, and then they can hold the employees. Pretty straightforward process. It's within the chain of command, it's within our responsibility. So the reason for this was back in the day, a little while ago, the State Auditor General's report, performance audit, which is attached, referenced the board's failure to comply. That was right here. Did not comply with its own board policy. The attached safe school reports and spreadsheet show the Lehighton Area School District has a major problem when compared with Carbon County schools. So we pulled the Carbon County report, shows total arrests 22 for the entire county. And then we pulled the Lehighton report, which shows, again, 22. So we had all the arrests. And a lot of them involving law enforcement. 89, we had 69 of the 89. So we got to take a look at what's going on within our district. We want to protect these students. So these are the offenses. Possession of weapons. Now, if you take a look at this, this shows that we had 2 in our school in Carbon County. We had 4. Now, there's a little side note. 8 detentions in all of Carbon County. 8 kids got detention in all of Carbon County. Look at the in-school suspensions and the out-of-school suspensions. So we might not be implementing our policies properly. So it's either way. It's in here somewhere about the number of weapons, and it looks like I believe it was 4 within our area. It's 4 within our county, and 2 within our district. Continue on with our district, cyberbullying, or cyber harassment, sorry. This is the age groups. So they actually break down these reports by age group and class. So this is the age group we should focus our attention to make sure we're providing oversight. Very rare for a young individual to break policy or break the law or do something to get them arrested if they're being properly supervised. It's usually pretty rare. Anyway, grade levels. Let's through this district employees, parents, students, and the IUPs, students with IUPs. So these in our district, our issue, according to the report, is with the students. So we should monitor the students and protect them from each other the best we can. Number that were done on school hours. This is pretty interesting. It's 97. 97. Again, we had no detentions. I find that odd, but according to this report, we have no detentions. We have lots of in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions. It shows that we had no law enforcement for parental involvement. But here's very interesting. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit for you. I apologize. I'm gonna bore you. My skills is the operator here. But anyway, victims that did not sustain physical injury, 53. Serious bodily injury, none. According to the Lehighton Area School District's report for 2019 to 2020, we had none serious bodily injury. Injuries, but not serious bodily injury, also none. So here you have a report that's going to the state that should have went through board oversight. It did not do it. Maybe I missed the meeting, but either way, somebody should have been able to catch this because we did have a January board meeting where at least one person showed up and said their child had a head injury from bullying and was sent to the pediatric ICU. It was on the Times News. It was on TV 13. I think he went to the WNEP. But he was in a hospital, pediatric ICU, injured from bullies. So why is our report not showing that? Something to be reviewed. Buck stops with the report. Also, it shows that nobody was expelled for a weapon, yet we had 2 instances of weapons. And it shows that nobody had out of school suspension, but we had 2 for weapons. That's an interesting word. We should hold our administration accountable and ask. Now, we don't need to know the person's name or anything else. We respect personal privacy, but we shouldn't look at that. Basically, we have a responsibility under our laws, our responsibility to follow our policy, which is basically law at local level. And that policy says superintendent shall be responsible for ensuring that the district is run in accordance with our current policy. Very important. We have policy 011 that says engaging in community support, seeking input, building a support network. I think I saw how to do that. I'd like to adopt that. It's a very serious process. We have a suggestion box. And anyone who must make a suggestion, send it directly to the board so we have access. Any suggestion from our community. Here again, engaging stakeholder input. Seeking input. Ensuring public access. Seeking input. It's our responsibility. We're supposed to listen to the public. They should be provided with the information about schools and engage the board and staff to encourage input and support of our school system. A better way than to ask what's happening within our schools. Have it go to a PO box, come to our board, make sure we know what's happening. Because apparently our Safe Schools report doesn't really show or reflect what we're being told by the parents. There's a disparity there. So we just want to verify and give an opportunity. They might have a great suggestion for us, and we should engage those, obviously, from our policy. Engage the stakeholders to provide that input. Public service. The board intends, through its two-way communication, needs and suggestions, be responsive to the community. Details exactly what our job is and how we should be doing it. And again, since the Auditor General found that we were not in compliance, maybe we should take a more active view of how to be in compliance. And now that we have a full complement of board members, what a great opportunity. If you look at our policy on hazing, it hasn't been changed since 2008. So one of my motions in this meeting is to pull that up in the rotation to get it reviewed right away. Next month. We do know that there was a new law in 2018 in the state of Pennsylvania that employees in education and know means for which to deal with hazing. It's mostly focused around colleges, but still is a responsibility for educational institutions like ours, or a government-run school, we should follow the law. Our anti-bullying, I was able to get this reviewed back in 2019 after we had some issues. We sought to implement the Safe to Say, make sure I was trained on that, and we did review it. But since then, we're still seeing some of it, so we should review this one as well and check it out. I think just get a PO box, pretty straightforward, simple, and that would do it. So the idea, the primary responsibility of the board is to adopt policies by which the schools are administered. This is all written in our policy. This meeting will comply with the responsibility ordained by our oath of office. Great, Larry's cooperation was received, so that's great. We go to Larry. Have a meeting. And you can see the press and public. Now I'm gonna just go through this for a second. You might think that our 2019, 2020 report was a fluke, but you can pull them up. And here's our safe to say. Here's if you have anything about bullying prevention. Here's our contact at the state level. I heavily engage any individual. You have state government, federal government, state government, and then you get your local government. Ever feel concerned, going to the state level. Get out of the mix. Anyway, there's our safe to say for the state level. If you have any educator misconduct, this is the method in which the Pennsylvania Department of Education processes staff members that are supposed to do things that may or may not have done them, and parents or students can file them. This is our safe school. So you can go to Lehighton and you can pick up a variety of years. Each time it gets you a spreadsheet and a little PDF, and there it is. So this is 1920, the one we just did. There's Carbon County. Right, Lehighton again, sorry. 1819, we had 17 arrests. From a county level, 1819, 17 arrests, all of them 2 years in a row now, all Lehighton's. And then you do the next year, this is 1718. They didn't show arrests, they showed offenders. And then that would be the county report of offenders. This is relatively a newer problem that we're seeing, but we need to address. Appreciate it greatly. Firmly believe that now the presentation is completed. Public should have an opportunity to comment prior to the motions being passed under the Sunshine Act. And that's why we have inside of our agenda that sorry, a second here. Here's the agenda I submitted, that we have presentation first, then public comment, and then here's the motions. Let's get a suggestion box and a PO box. Let's assign one of our directors to manage that PO box. For the board as a whole to instruct the policy committee to seek stakeholder input, review the policy, recommendation necessary, update the two main for the protection of students. This is stuff that should be logical, rational review of these policies. And also the incidents on the safe school reports don't need any private information, just a big review. Hey, what kind of weapons did we have? What took place? You know, why are some of these other injuries that we were talking about not on the report? Let's see if we can correct this report. If we need to submit a corrected report to the state, that makes sense. It's our responsibility. We should meet our responsibility. Policy meeting is an appropriate place for that. Currently scheduled for October 6th. And then the last one was for the board as a whole to instruct Larry Stern, our president, to add Barbose to the policy committee, the new appointed director, leaving Larry Stern, replacing Larry Stern, and removing him as a committee member, but adding him as our policy shows within our policy, that he's an ex officio member, as he's the ex officio member of all committees. So no problem with him showing up, no problem with participating. I don't know how you read Robert's Rules of Order, whether or not you can or can't vote on those committees. Makes sense. But the reality is you should have a full complement for each committee. And therefore it should reflect the board as a whole. And then you got directors concerned, public comment, and other opportunity. Thank you very much for the presentation and the opportunity to do this on a video. Since this is now going to be a Zoom meeting, hopefully this prevents our illustrious board of directors from editing to make sure the presentation is presented in whole. I'm releasing it tonight, Sunday night, so everybody can review it. you have any questions or anything else, my email's available, bradley@lehightongovt.org. Have yourself a great evening. Really appreciate your attention and time. It's a very important matter. A special meeting, we tried doing it before. We need this special meeting to be focused just on students, student safety. And this board should take the responsibility to ensure that our staff are all trained properly, that our administration is administering our policies, and that the students are protected. I think we all agree that a bunch of questions were missed, like why were certain students not supervised? What took place here? Private information. And big picture answer. What policies are working, what policies are not working, and giving the antiquated version of these policies, it's time to have it. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
That face that is usually
Okay, are you able to see the agenda again? Back to the
Yes.
agenda.
Yes.
Okay, I do have a couple comments before our next presentation, just to address that. I do have Sue Howland. I also have Floyd Brown and Mr. Stephen Ebert in as panelists as we prepare our presentation regarding school safety as well. But just a couple things before we get started with that presentation. The important part that I want to just reiterate to everyone is that I know Mr. Bradley referenced Safe to Say and Safe Schools report. Those are two different things. The Safe to Say report is completely confidential. We don't get a report of information from that. What it is, it allows us to go back and forth and make sure that the students that are reported, that we contact them, we talk to the parents, but that information is private, and that student information at any time is not released. It's been a great program for us. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that reporting stuff is Safe to Say is still private. The other part of that too is the Safe Schools report is different. So the Safe Schools report, we do report to the state, but the Safe to Say program that we reference a lot is not a reportable report to where the state or any other one gets any type of report from. That's totally confidential within the buildings, the parents and the students. But like I said, I don't want people to be concerned that that information is being released from Safe to Say, because that is not the case. The other part too, regarding the 2019-2020 report, number one, we do not arrest. We issue citations, but there is nowhere to list citations. So the arrests are there. And I think that's important. The 17-18, there's no citations issued or arrest, because at 17-18, we turned everything over to the borough police. And that is one of the reasons why Lehighton Area School District shows those other citations that are reported, because starting with 18-19, as you're aware, our district has our own school police officers, and they have the same privileges as do the local police. So the other school districts in the county won't report anything because they don't have school police officers as we do. They report everything over to the borough, and then, or their municipality, whatever it may be, and then that is how it is handled. So that is one of the reasons why our district shows more than any other school in the county, because we are unique in that we have our own school police officers and our own school police department. We will continue to only show arrests and citations as we move forward, unless another district in our county decides to do what we have done and hire their own police force with the same rights and privileges as the local police force. So that's just for clarification. Also, another part of the report that's important is many of our citations and different things are for vaping and e-cigarettes. And up until January 1st of 2020, by school law, that law was then changed that we were able to begin citing for vaping and e-cigarettes and those type of things. In clarification for the weapons that was brought up in that presentation, Lehighton did show 2, the county showed 4. The report did not show any out-of-school suspensions or in-school suspensions. Well, the issues with weapons and those type of things, it can be an automatic change of placement. It wouldn't show expulsions. As we're aware, we have done waivers of expulsions in the past. And the report for what they call in-school suspension does not break down by incident, as the out-of-school suspension does have a more of a breakdown. The other part too is sometimes with something that may be a weapon, may come under a weapon, but may be an incident that involve possibly a special education student that has an IEP, then there needs to be a manifestation hearing for that student. And, there's different procedures and processes that we have to follow depending on, the situation with the student and the individual disability. So there's a lot of factors that play into that. The question about no detentions listed, but many ISS and OSS, that is correct. There was the in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions listed, but detentions are not reported as part of the system. And we'll break it down so you can see that at the presentation that we give. Age breakdown of incidents, mainly age 12 to 16. There's a little question on supervision of students. I think, that's probably the age that you would see most discrepancies. We are starting programs, and I know Mr. Eber and Ms. Howland will also be able to touch base on that. A large number of students with IEPs. Our district has a number of programs that we offer for students, not only Lehighton students, but also students from out of our district that are based upon behavior and emotional needs of students. So some of these students, those are reported, even if they have an IEP. And they're there for different reasons. If they have behavior and emotional needs, if they step out of line, those situations are addressed and they are reported. So I think it's important for people to know that, we do offer programs where behavior is an issue, and, when they step out of line, that's how it gets reported. When an offense does occur, no matter what it is, we are required to report it, and we do that. The other part that was a question about the year and a student sustaining physical injury. In 1920, there was no drop-down code for physical injuries. This type of incident, unfortunately, we do have to mark it towards something, and it's we read the descriptions and we make an effort to put it in the correct area. So we look something as far as reckless endangering for that incident. Now for 2021, I will say they did change, the BEC came out, and there is now a reportable required for 2021 moving forward with physical injuries. So this reporting system and guidelines, they change year to year, and our administration does make a good faith effort to complete them as accurate as possible. I think we do a great job. We're fortunate to have our school police officers also help us with submitting this information. So I think overall, I think it's important for people to understand what they're looking at, because some of the questions that were brought up in that first presentation, unless you knew this information, you wouldn't, it would sound like there was some type of false reporting or inaccurate reporting taking place. But I could tell you that I believe our reporting for administration and how it's done, they do a fantastic job. So I will turn it over to Mr. Ebert and Ms. Holland for the next part of the presentation. Mr. Stern, can you see that?
Flavor.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't see this presentation on the agenda.
What is that?
This second presentation is not on the agenda.
No, we just finished it today because we were getting all the information and data around, but we're putting that on as part of a presentation because it directly involves school safety and information.
But it did
So
say in the advertisement that only the agenda would be addressed, or that would,
schools, no, anything, school safety. So that's why we have this to present.
no, That's in the agenda. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you.
Additionally, it wasn't even
So,
shared. Additionally,
Everett,
hold on.
Ms.
Additionally,
Holland and Mr. Brown, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so please,
Good
you
evening.
know,
Hello.
chime in at any time. So again, I thank the administration for putting this information together to show, some of the correlation and also to highlight the programs that we offer here to address some of the concerns that people may have. Our district does a lot of different programs, which you'll see here, to try and deal with discipline and not only additional social emotional needs, students who make poor choices, and we try to work with them to make sure we can correct them. And some of this data is definitely good to see as part of school safety, because it points out a lot of good information, how what we're doing must be working based upon the data that you'll see here. So you can see here our student enrollment trends that we have here for the district. The groups that are offered through Carbon Row Pike alcohol at the high school, I will let Ms. Holland, talk briefly on those programs that we have.
Hi, good evening. So what you have in front of you right now are the groups that are listed through, and really they're funded through Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol in conjunction with SAP. And SAP is our student assistance program, which runs in every school district in the state of Pennsylvania. It is a required program. We have one at the elementary, middle, and high school. Students are referred through SAP. They could be referred through parent referral, student referral, teacher referral system, as well as any drug and alcohol issues go through the student assistance program. SAP also, Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol, Mr. Mikulski provides us, and the department provides us with a on-site counselor. She spends a good chunk of her week in Lehighton and dealing with us on a day-to-day basis. And so, for example, we talk about vaping education. Vaping, any student who is caught with a vape device is immediately referred to a restorative practice. On top of they would receive a consequence, but we also do restorative practices, which would be vaping education. But these are some of the groups that are offered. Currently, there's been announcements for the past 2 weeks out in Lehighton Area High School and the middle school to see who is interested in groups. Students have the ability to sign up for those groups. They don't have to be referred, but just alone at the high school, the groups that are being offered through Carbon Monroe Pike and SAP are concerned persons, drug education, actively trying, normal but bumpy, lost, impacted by addicts. So students who maybe have had some type of family member or are living in a family situation where there's some addiction, they have the ability to attend a group to receive help for that. Women's groups, self-help groups for students who are experiencing stress due to problems and peer pressure. And then, of course, we have a drug and alcohol consultant that was privately requested by students to either check in with them. We also do drug and alcohol screenings, which if a student would like to have a drug and alcohol screening done, they seek us out through the SAP team, or parents can seek that out and request that for their students. And then that we connect them with Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol. And we really step out of that. In that sense, we are the mediator. We connect them with the source, and then Carbon Monroe Pike, their counselors will do assessment, and all that information is then done between the family. We're not provided that background, obviously, due to privacy, and they make recommendations and treatments for our students or families. So that's at the high school. And I know if you scroll down, middle school has similar types groups. I don't know if Mr. Everett wants to address those, but they're
Mr. Everett,
pretty
if you could touch base with the middle school groups.
Absolutely. Thank you all for hosting this and allowing us to present this. So at the middle school, we try and address it more towards our student needs. Oftentimes when we do a survey that's given by the state, we pull some of the information from that to make sure that we're providing the need for the student. So one of the things we do, we offer the concerned persons, and this group is for students that are affected by drug or alcohol use of someone close to them or family members. Drug education, this group's for students that's interested in learning or gaining more information about drugs and alcohol. We've noticed that through these surveys, we have more younger people experimenting. And a lot of times, as Mr. Bradley alluded to and Mr. Cleaver alluded to, we get a lot of tips on safe to say. And when we do our parent and student orientation and also our rules and regulations for our students, we have actively been promoting safe to say, and our students, our parents are taking it serious. and they're reaching out and giving us the tips and helping us find the students that are greatly in need. While this presentation is up, I just want to point out that this year so far, New Year started, we have already received 15 safe to say tips that they're allowing us to get to our students who truly need help. There has not been one out of the 15 that was a false report. It's working. Parents are using it as well as students, and it's allowing us to get there and help the students that are in the greatest need. Our normal but bumpy group, a lot of this as students are developing into adolescence, becoming young adults, they deal with a lot of separation, a lot of loss, and that normal but bumpy group tries to help them out and allows kids to see that there are other kids just like them that are struggling, and it becomes a self-help group. Lost is just missing somebody, someone who may be gone from their lives, a parent, a grandparent. A lot of times younger students have a hard time dealing with big brother and big sister going off to college. We have to remember the age group that we're dealing with here at the middle school. So we see that they're missing big brother and big sister as they move on with their lives. We want to support them in that. And then the IBA group is impacted by addicts. That's pretty much self-explanatory, and we want to make sure that we're here to support our students. Drug and alcohol consultant privately requested by students or SAP team referral. When we do our orientation and our rules and regulations for our students, we teach our students how to make an online SAP referral. If you haven't looked at our websites, if you go under the student section, you will see the Lehighton Area School District SAP on both the high school and middle school. And we will make sure that our students know how to help each other. And that's one of the things we're really trying to do here. We want to be preventative. We want to provide support for our students. And in just a bit, we'll show you how that's happening.
Just going to interject 1 second, Mr. Ebert. Mr. Ebert, again, everyone alluded to the safe to say. I'd like to point out, like you said, that safe to say, the whole purpose is for us to vet out threats. And those threats come across in many ways, as Mr. Ebert has mentioned and everyone else has alluded to, whether it's mental health, whether it's at risk or threats related to the school. It essentially is a 911 call dispatch center that they immediately communicate with the administrative team, and we respond and react. And if it's in school time, it's us responding. If it's after school time, that's the local municipalities, and we all work together to make sure that our student needs are taken care of. And that essentially, we're on call with that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're fine with that. But as Mr. Herbert said, those 15 safe to says that he's referring to have occurred at the middle school. The high school's received 2. And again, both of them have been vetted. Both of them have been, founded to be good information that has allowed us to work with families to get students help. Before we go any further, even with SAP, I'd like to also talk about, we're talking about bullying and hazing, those type of things. But just so y'all are aware, is October is bully prevention a month, and there's many things being planned. And the high school has a club called Evidum, which is a national club. It actually originated in Pennsylvania, and that is students having your own back, and they lead the way. And that club has now transpired into the middle school, where they've been working to get that up and running. And Evidum, for example, meets weekly. They do many activities throughout the school year, but this year, again, they're promoting the 3rd annual bully prevention video that they put out for 5th graders. And the purpose of that is our high school students teaching our younger students not to bully, and put out an anti-bully prevention video. So that will be being sent out to all the 5th grade teachers to show in classes, generating discussions on healthy friendships, what to do when struggling. And that's coming directly from our high school students. They're putting it together by themselves because they are mature and they are responsible, and they're able to do that with the guidance of our school social workers, which I'd be remiss if we didn't mention in this presentation, because they are a huge part of helping and being preventative, and as I said, with restorative practices. Sorry.
That's okay. The next slide here is just a breakdown. We talked about the S8 team, so you can see the reporting that we have by screening, consult hours, SAP referrals, new individual interventions, referrals. You could see the amount of groups that they do, and group referrals, and also their SAP team there.
Right. And that data was provided by Carbon Monroe-Pike Drug and Alcohol, again, from 2017 through already this school year.
The next thing we want to talk about, I know we touched a little bit about the report, but we also keep our own individual information here as well. So Mr. Abbott, I'll show you as an example, as a snapshot, we will explain the middle school portion of this.
Okay, so we're going to look at the 2018-2019 middle school types of interventions and consequences. While you saw the numbers that were reported to the state, there were 67 warnings that we did where we really, it's the minimum consequence. We sit the student down, we talk to them, and we just want to find out what's going on and make sure parents are aware, hey, you know, we may need to have a conversation about your son or daughter. We issued 12 loss of activity, 304 lunch detentions, which is the least restrictive consequence for minor infractions, 151 after-school detentions if it's a more serious or repeat. And at that time, we were using Saturday detentions for major infractions, repeated offenders. It was also part of our repeated tardy to school and our vaping consequence. One thing you will not see on some of the state reports is we use level 0, which is similar to an in-school suspension, but it may be students with an IEP or students that are in our social emotional support classroom. And when we give that, they match up with our school behavior specialist and they really focus on the misconduct, what the misbehavior was. And the behavior specialist, while they're assigned to level 0, will spend time really trying to remediate and come up with possible solutions or better alternatives to the misbehavior that a student acted out on. 18 bus suspensions. By the time they're in middle school, we expect them to know that riding the bus is a privilege. It's not a right. And with larger students, when they misbehave, it's very distracting to the driver. While all students, you know, are distracting if they're misbehaving, we're talking about larger kids that are really young adults, and we want to make sure they know that we can't tolerate that in close environments on the bus for their own safety. We looked at 97 state sanctioned values that were reportable, either a consequence of OSS or ISS. That leads us into the next year, very similar. But, you know, looking at it, we want to make sure that you know, and I put a note at the bottom of the slide, this is the school year that schools were shut down in March for COVID. So you're going to see that we were still doing the same kind of things. We were issuing warnings. We were issuing the loss of activity, the lunch detentions, all of the same things were occurring to try and prevent the student escalating to a state sanctioned event. But there are a lot less than the previous year simply because we were shut down in March. So the next couple slides that we wanted to share with you is that 88%, you know, we're looking at reports, and the reports that we're seeing are only the negative things. You're looking at the things that have been reported to the state, which are kind of a negative look at our school and saying, oh, you had this many suspensions, you had this many incidents of weapons. I think we're losing sight of all the things that we're doing to make sure that the kids are safe, to make sure that our students are doing the right thing. And it's important to point out that 88.3% of the middle school students during the 18-19 school year had no state reportable incidents. And even after one reportable incident, very few students are repeat offenders. One of the following slides, and you can see here our pie chart, that shows in the maroon, the dark red color, you know, 88% of our kids are always doing the right thing. And that, I think, we need to make sure that we're giving our students positive feedback. They need to see that we know they're doing the right thing. And this is just an example. And then in the white, you have students that had one reportable. That percentage is 7.7. Anyone who had two, you see the number drops dramatically. Only 2.4% had two incidents that were reportable. And then there's only 1.6% of students that had 3 or more incidents. So the bar graph shows our after-school detentions. Again, if we look at the after-school detentions, at the middle school during that year, there were 462 students that absolutely never needed an after-school detention or any kind of intervention. They're doing the right thing. Students who did receive one consequence, there were 61 students. But then that number drops off significantly. After we met with them, after we talked to them, we gave them a consequence, there were only 15 students that had 2 after-school detentions. And it drops even more dramatically that only 4 students out of our entire student body had 3 or more after-school detentions. If we move on to the Saturday detentions, and again, I had mentioned our Saturday detentions were part of our vaping and excessive tardiness consequence, and also the severe infractions.
Mr. Everett, excuse me, can you just allude to severe tardies means what number, just so the community is aware that at a certain number we are required to give by law?
9. After 9 tardies to school, it moves into the excessive tardiness. So they're given a warning, they're giving a lunch detention, they're giving an after-school detention, but after 9 tardies, then they were assigned to a Saturday. So again, we give them a warning. We give them a small consequence. We try and get them to, do what we ask and get to school and class on time. Again, we're always trying to talk to the student and correct their behavior. We also want to make sure, and I think it's important to point out as well, we only go by semester. We realize that classes change with semester, so we give the students the opportunity. In the second semester, we drop everybody's tardies to 0. Because we want to see if they've improved. So they get a clean slate in the start of the second semester. So we had 74 students that had 1 Saturday. Again, after they get that consequence, only 19 had to repeat for a second Saturday detention. And then there were 15, and almost all of them were because of excessive tardiness that served 3 or more Saturday detentions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Howland and Mr. Brown for the high school.
Yeah, just
before we jump ahead, hold on. Before we jump ahead, who was the gentleman that just was speaking? It said Stephen Ebert on the screen. Is that correct?
It's Mr. Ebert, the principal at the middle school.
Yep. Okay, that's what it said on the screen. I just wanted to make sure. Can you please go back to the 2 charts you had there, Mr. Cleaver? That one right there shows Saturday detentions. So there's a certain number of students had none, certain had 1, certain had 2, and certain had 3 or more. And then you go to the one before that. After school detentions, no consequences, 1, 2, and 3 or more. So why do those 2 values of students add up to about 50 less students for one than the other? Are we missing students in those charts? The first one shows 542 students, the next one shows 613. Where'd the other 50 students go? I mean, it should be an all-inclusive group, right?
The number should be based on 613.
Yep,
you have to
the bottom
remember
one's 613. So go ahead, go back up to the other one. If you guys want to do some quick math on the first chart. The first chart shows 542, I believe. Maybe a number's wrong.
It could be, or it could be that students moved in and out of the district. I can certainly recalculate them and get back to you with the accurate number, but everything was based at the 613, which was listed on, I believe, slide 3 or 2 for student population.
Yeah, 613 makes sense. I get that. But if you haven't, just quickly, it's 462, right? So 462 plus 61 plus 15 plus 4, 542. We're missing 52 students.
Sure, I can take a look at that while Mrs. Howland.
Yeah. Did this get sent to the board at all, even after it was completed, before we decided to present it to the public for review?
No, it did not. We were just getting it up there, that we were getting all our information around for today, Mr. Bradley, but it will be posted on the website as well.
Part of my concern is exactly that. I think the board needs to trust and verify a lot of this information before it gets presented.
Okay, you may do that. Ms. Holland?
A little late, but yeah.
Hi again. So pretty much what we have is you had in question the 1819 and 1920 safe schools reports. So these numbers are based off that. We don't have charts as Mr. Ebert did at the middle school. We looked at our incidents from 1819. There were 59 total incidents. 51 different students obviously had an incident with 8 repeat offenders, and the others obviously restorative practices worked. 44 were state sanctioned values, which were reportable. So the consequences, either an out-of-school suspension or an ISS. 15 are LEA incidents, which involves lunch detentions or least restrictive or potentially an after-school detention. And at the time in 1819, there were still Saturday detentions issued. There were 7 of them issued. As I've noted on the bottom, vaping in the 1819 school year, how vaping was handled in the Lehighton Area School District between the middle school and the high school was fairly consistently. If a student was caught with some type of vaping device, which was a nicotine device, there was an automatic 2-day in-school suspension, a Saturday, and then they were required to do the vaping education through Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol with parental consent, which always potentially occurred. So that's the 1819 numbers. The 1920 numbers, as you can see, I'm also going to note that 1920 was the year we did shut down in March due to COVID-19. 105 total incidents, 68 different students, 22 were repeat offenders, 55 state sanctioned, so either again OSS or ISS, and 50 LEAs, lunch detentions, 25 Saturday detentions in school year for major infractions or repeated offender, and once again vaping, there was 2 days in school, 1 Saturday vaping education. Now vaping, because we're no longer using Saturdays as the detention piece, vaping is 3 days in school suspension. It's a referral now because of the way the laws changed to the school police, whether they were cited or not, that's entirely determined by the police department. And then vaping education through Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol.
And I think too, we wanted to talk about some of this stuff because between Sue, Steve, and Mr. Brown, I know it's, these are the most infractions that you would see on that safe schools report.
Sure, which is why we put the possession or use of tobacco and vape products. That's how it's written in our handbook. There's a first offense, second offense, third offense, and that's the way it's kind of been handled. It's handled most generally in districts across Carbon County the same way, with consequences and charges. Obviously, we have our own police department, so our citations go through our police department, whereas other school districts are using their local municipalities, whether that's their boroughs or whether that's Pennsylvania State Police, but most of them have their own municipalities.
Any questions from the board regarding the two presentations? I'll keep Sue and Steve and Floyd available. Any questions?
Can you name a couple of the 55 state sanctioned values that are considered reportable? So obviously vaping is one and tobacco is one. What were some of the other in the 55?
So the coding system in our system, is that what you're referring to, Mr. Bradley? How they're coded for state sanctions? Or whether it's...
No, I'm giving an example of something that would be
so
considered a
vaping
state
would be
sanction.
one, as you mentioned. Theft could be another. And again, Mr. Brown, I don't know if you want to weigh in because you usually do most of the coding, but I believe there's probably a minor alteration. There could be fighting. There could be sexual assault. It could be simple assault.
I can actually step in if you want. This is Mr. Ebert again. The one thing that we have to do when we have an incident referral, and we've standardized it across the district with the help of Mrs. Lori Fry, who does the reporting to the state. Under behavior, we have a drop-down menu, and we have different sections we need to look at and we need to choose from. One is conduct against the person. The other drop-down menu is misconduct against property or society. Then we have misconduct, which could be illegal possession of a weapon, or misconduct, illegal possession of something other. If we go to the drop-down menu, some of the items that would fall under misconduct against a person could be simple assault on a student, aggravated indecent assault, racial ethnic intimidation, all other forms of harassment, discrimination, fighting, minor altercation, threatening a school official or threatening a student. Those are just some of the ones that are listed for against the person. Under conduct against property or society, it could be terroristic threats, disorderly conduct, possession could be a handgun, possession of a knife, which then goes into the size of the knife, possession of a BB or pellet gun, possession of another type of weapon. The misconduct of illegal possession other, it could be possession or use of a controlled substance, sale or distribution of a controlled substance, possession, use of tobacco. So as an example, any one of those could fall in that category. And we work with our school resource officer, our police officer, Officer Salerno, and oftentimes we refer to Mrs. Lori Fry to make sure that we are coding them properly on our behavior checklist.
I also wanted to note then one thing I referred to SAP in here a lot this evening. And one thing that we do yearly as well, and I believe that's been occurring in the state since probably 1989, is that we do what's called the PAY survey, and that is the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. And that, just so again, the community is aware of that, that is a survey that is conducted at the middle school and high school. It takes place with specific age groups. 6th graders, 8th graders, 10th and 12th graders each year are asked to take a survey, and they're pretty much, it answers questions about behaviors, attitudes, and knowledge concerning alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs and violence. And based on those results are then calculated through PAYS. They're shared with us through Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol, and yearly, as I said. And based on that data, one thing that we've added this year, we are going to be doing a repeat offender vaping education class, because of the students who have openly admitted that vaping is just a part of their lives. So Drug and Alcohol and SAP has worked with us to be able to add a repeat vaping offender program. That will be something new this year that we're adding to that. And the survey will be done in the next several weeks in school, students taking on the computers. And then again, we use that data to help with our groups and make better decisions about how we can service our kids between, SAP and Drug and Alcohol and our social workers and our counselors. So.
Any other questions regarding the two presentations?
I have one more. Can you
Okay,
please
sir.
go back to the chart about 6 pages back?
Yep.
Just start scrolling up, please, and I'll show you.
Yes.
Keep going. A little more. Right there. Perfect. So this shows, if I'm not mistaken, blue is 18, the maroon is 19, the yellowish color is 20, and then obviously in 21 we're a partial year. So you mentioned that our system must be working, yet it seems like each of these need for either interventions or referrals or SAP referrals or new group referrals are all increasing with each year and accelerating in their growth. Am I misreading that chart? I know statistics can be presented in a variety of ways, but that looks like we have a growing problem.
Well, I think, Mr. Bradley, looking at this, you'd think it the other way, is that we're hitting the students that we need to, that the SAP program is working, and we're able to put in these preventative measures before it gets to anything more serious. Because I'll let Ms. Holland and Mr. Ebert kind of go through the SAP process, how it works, because this is kind of the first step into trying to prevent any of those serious infractions to take place. So I don't know, Mr. Ebert or Ms. Holland.
So you're trying to make the logical argument that we had more incidents before that we didn't catch, but now we're catching more. So
No, Mr. Bradley, that's not what
so
I'm
what
saying.
do you, then please explain
Mr.
yourself.
Bradley, Ms. Holland, and
Please
let Mr.
explain
Ebert
yourself,
explain
Mr.
the
Cleaver.
SAP process. Mr. Holland or Mr. Ebert, can you explain the SAP process, please?
Sure. So again, the Student Assistance Program is a referral-based program. And as mentioned, it can be referred by students, can be referred through teachers, it can be referred by other students, they can refer themselves, parents can refer them. And that is essentially, it is a data, it's based on data. So there's a referral process. The team is, each building level has a team of people who have been trained at the state level. And then again, once again, we'll send out referral forms to teachers where we're collecting data, measurable data on behaviors that are seen. If we feel that the data is conclusive, that a the referral is needed and parents are actively involved in wanting their student to receive a SAP referral, we go through the process of, it's essentially a team meeting where we're going to create goals for a student to be successful. What you have in front of you are the numbers. So as you can see, screenings, what screenings represent are drug and alcohol screenings that have transpired over the years, and how those drug and alcohol screenings come up. It could be a student maybe is caught maybe with an infraction, and it comes out in conversation and in dialogue between the administration and the parents and the counselors. It could be that a parent has contacted us, they've reached out to us. Many times families are reaching out to us on a daily basis asking us for help because they don't know what to do, they don't have the resources. So this is our starting base for resources for our families. It's our social workers and it's our SAP team. And then we look at the information again, we look at the data and we filter that out and we provide resources for our families so that they can best make choices for their students. Consulting hours, that's the amount of hours that the drug and alcohol unit is consulting with us. The actual number of referrals or what's there, new individual interventions. So again, those interventions that are applied. So if you can see in the 2021 school year, and it's pretty small on my screen, so I apologize. There were, I'm looking, contractual hours were 101, SAP referrals were, I believe, my goodness, it's small, 88, I believe. New individual interventions were 68. So 68 interventions were applied to students. Amount of referrals, groups, so 245 groups were occurring at some level. This is district level. This just isn't middle school and high school. So this is elementary, middle, and high school. So there were 245 groups going on within our school system, which is obviously all preventative and trying to catch. So that's where we're at. And again, I know Mr. Mikulski is in this Zoom, and I think if we want to let him in, he's happy to speak on the impact of carbon monoxide, drug and alcohol, and their consulting hours to our district.
Yes, we'll see if Mr. Mikulski is able to come in. Let's see. There, Mr. Mikulski? You should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. Mr. Mikulski, if you should be able to unmute yourself, and then you should be able to, yep, you should be unmuted now. Can you hear us? Mr. Mikulski? Mr. Mikulski, can you hear us? Hello, Mr. Mikulski. Can you turn your volume up? It's very, very faint. Oh, Rob? Okay.
Mr. Cleaver, while you're trying to get them into the meeting, I appreciate that.
Hello, Rob.
Can you please?
Yeah, sorry.
Is he in? Good.
He should be. Mr. Mikulski? He shows that he's, yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Hold on, I just got to get back to the screen where I can see what's up there. Okay, I know when I try to get on here when Ms. Holland was talking, one of the things that you can see kind of that shift in numbers, that was also due to the fact of our contractual days. We went from 2 days to 3 days to 2 days for half a year with an additional half year to 1 day. So, I mean, some of those numbers are based on the availability of days that we had contractual services with the district. I can go through each of those definitions are, if that would be helpful. I don't know what specific questions they have on which, on which group.
I think that, the basic question was the increase. So that would explain it too, the amount of, consulting.
Our services are based on a daily rate, when I say a day rate, that's 38 weeks, which is basically from Labor Day until Memorial Day of a school year. We usually do a full day of service. The district really decides what we do. I know this year we dealt with the middle school and some of the PAYS issues, especially around vaping. I can tell you, if you look at the PAYS survey, it went from 11% of the students overall vaped in the 17 survey to almost 23% in the 19 survey. And the numbers, if you give me a second here, I can pull up exactly what the numbers look like for the marijuana, vaping marijuana or hash oil. That really went through the roof. So what we did is we're looking at implementing a repeat vaping program. We're also looking at a Too Good for Drugs program in the middle school at 3 different grade levels, and just expanding services, because really most people, when they look at the PAYS, look at the year totals. I like to look at longitudinally, so you follow that 6th grade class when they go to 8th grade, when they go to 10th grade, and then when they're seniors. So what happens in those years between 6th and 8th grade, I think, is really important. And when you look at the overall data from Lehighton, there's something that we need to beef up in there. So that's why, we met with the team over there a few times over the summer and are really trying to expand services in that area. Also,
Mr. Mikulski, just so you know, the vaping marijuana or hash oil went from 3.6% in 2017 to students emitting in 2019 to 22.2% of our students.
Okay. So, I mean, what I do is I just kind of go through and pull out some of these major things that I see, and I hear from some of the people at the Epicenter, who's the contractual people, the Epicenter and the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, and kind of see what's going on statewide and what also is going on in the district. And probably I'm the only person that gets to see all of the for anybody that doesn't have a background with PAYS reports are given directly to the districts, to the superintendents. The superintendents have to allow us to have access to those. And I can tell you, we are the only SCA or single county authority in the state of Pennsylvania that has all of our school districts doing the PAYS survey and receives individual district surveys from all of the 11 school districts that we provide services to. So I probably am the only one that sees all the PAYS results for that. And I don't usually share, other districts, but I can tell you that, Lehighton, what Lehighton is seeing as far as increases isn't different than any of the other ones. You can look at the county reports, which is public. You can look at the state report, which is public, that's put out every year for PAYS. And I think that's you're going to find the same kind of thing. I'm just looking at any other things that kind of jumped out here. I mean, one of the things I did look at when when we talked about this, when we've heard about this earlier, is according to the PAYS survey, there's some questions in there on bullying. And one of the things that, if you look at the 2017 report, students who felt they were bullied was 4.3%, and it dropped to 2.1% in 2019. So one of the things that I was looking at is what happened between 2017 and 2019, that these students felt like that bullying actually went down. So that kind of shows some of the things that are working in a positive light. Now the feel that feels safe at school dropped a little bit, about 6%. So I mean, really, like a gentleman said, I don't know who it was, that said you could you can look at statistics either way. I can tell you that the Lehighton report, they have what they call the modified participation report with PAYS, because as you know, with any survey, students could give untruths and things like that. But the modified participation rate for Lehighton in 2019 was, sorry, I wasn't really prepared to do this here, but the modified participation rate for Lehighton was 74.2%, which was 644 out of 777 surveys that were taken that were deemed as effective. So that's a real good participation rate statewide. I don't think the statewide average is anywhere near that. I think the state average is somewhere around 52-54%. So if you look at the data, it does show that Lehighton students are telling the truth in what we're seeing, and that's kind of how we're adjusting our services and what we plan with the with the different buildings. And the other thing, when we talked about some of those numbers, is the expansion of Esap, which is elementary SAP. We're working on expanding that in the district, which would be in the elementary school, having SAP teams down there. We actually have on the in-service day on the 10th, we have a trainer coming down from Lackawanna, Susquehanna to do some SAP maintenance training. We're going to do individual building trainings, and then later in the year, bring everybody together to kind of increase the SAP process and how to better serve the students that come through our SAP teams.
Thank you, Mr. Mikulski. Okay, any other questions for the board before we go to public comment from the individuals participants?
Mr. Cleaver, if you could go to that bar graph, I did count my numbers again. I can share with Mr. Bradley the adjustment.
Okay.
So, Mr. Bradley, I apologize. I made a mistake when I was tallying my numbers. I redid it again. So as I was reading through the report and redoing the numbers. So in that first bar graph of no consequences, that number should be 501. For students that had one consequence, that should read 82. For 2 consequences, it should be 24. And the final one, the yellow one, 4 students, that should be 6. That was my mistake when I was counting them up. But we will make sure that that is adjusted before it is shared with the public.
Thank you, Mr. Everett, for clarification. Any other questions before we go to attendees, public comment?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Ms. Bose.
Why has this not been shared with the board in previous years?
What's that? This information?
Yes.
Because we just put it previously together. We do share, just for clarification, I know Ms. Bose, you're on the board. Every year we are required to, as part of Act 44, we are required to go over student safety and reporting, but that is held in executive session.
Okay.
So that information is shared with the board on a yearly basis. That's as requirement by law.
All right. Just wanted to ask.
Okay, we'll go to public comment.
First, Mr. Cleaver, we have 2, I think, public comment on the agenda, and then we'll have regular public comment after the motions, okay?
Okay.
So we had a public comment from Mr. Bradley had registered earlier today. And I want to make sure everybody stays within the 3-minute limit as well. Thank you.
I can go last. There's other people with their hand raised.
Mr. Bradley, this is not for the hand raised portion. This is for the portion prior to going to the agenda. This is what you had sent in earlier
Comment
today.
on the
So
agenda. It's comment on the agenda. Public comment on the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Is there anyone else that has public comment on the agenda besides myself?
There is one other, but you had sent yours in prior to theirs.
Okay, I'll go first. That's fine. I just wanted to make a comment that the meeting should have been in public. That's what the board approved. The meeting had 4 motions on the agenda. That's what the board approved. Somehow they got truncated. It's important that this agenda is published with the public so they have an opportunity to comment, they have an opportunity to review it, and same with these reports. They should all be publicly available. Thank you.
Mr. Streeter is another one you said?
Yes, and Mr. Chrisman. I hope he raises his hand.
Yep. Is it Eric Chrisman? Well, Mr. Chrisman?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the time to speak on the topic that we're going over this evening with the anti-bullying policy 249. As a concerned parent of Lehighton Area School District, I see the policy defines anti-bullying within 4 forms of identification, if I'm correct, physical, verbal, and cyber and psychological. I do have some concerns that there's several board members creating and overseeing this policy that are creating some strong negative undertones in 3 or 4 of those areas. I can't speak for everyone in the district, but I do feel there's a majority of us out there that feel the same way. Some board members have been the biggest offenders since 2016 and continue to challenge these 4 listed areas. So some of the listed examples of bullying and harassing behavior from board members that I have seen and have been part of have been improper handling of sensitive information that leads to community harassment, name calling, derogatory comments towards community members, fellow board members, and administration, using school district or regular emails to attack fellow board members, parents, students, and faculty, editing, recording meetings to put on their own social media blogs to fit their personal agenda, harassing community members on their social media sites when they post some displeasure with a board member, board members spreading rumors to parents and students about school events or government mandates to create public discourse, and trying to hijack board meetings. So the anti-bully policy that you're looking at to address is for the Lehighton area school district staff and students, but I also think this should include board members as well. Please remember, we represent the Lehighton area school district. We have young, impressionable minds that have access to this behavior and see what we're doing. So as a concerned parent, I would hope you take that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cushman. I will move on to our agenda topics. Under student safety, subject A, I need a motion and a second to approve the board's creation of a district-wide suggestion box by entering into a rental agreement with the United States Postal Service for a P.O. box in Palmerton, including the addition of a free service known as informed delivery. Need a motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Ms. Bose, a second by Ms. Beers on that recommended action, subject A, a post office box. Is there any comment by members of the board?
This is Nathan. I have a couple of questions. The first would be what is there a reason that the PO box would need to be located in Palmerton rather than Lehighton?
Mr. Bradley, do you have anything? This was your suggestion.
I could answer that if needed. I think it's obvious.
Well, why don't you answer it, please?
All right. Well, okay. Nathan and the board, I believe that given the amount of intimidation and harassment that's been taking place within this district, that people would feel more comfortable knowing that once that letter gets into the mailbox, it's identified to the board and not necessarily spread around town. So the best way to do that is just move it to Palmerton. It's a couple miles away.
So you're saying you don't trust the staff of Lehighton Post Office to keep mail private?
I did not say that, sir. You just said that.
I did. I'm just trying to understand. You said it was obvious.
It's obvious. Yes. Thank you.
Second question is about informed delivery. I believe informed delivery is only available to residential customers at this time. I don't believe it's available to other businesses and organizations.
I asked the Palmerton Post Office whether or not it was available, and they said that it was for us if we wanted to do it. And the answer about Palmerton was said, very good idea. Thank you.
Okay, I still feel the motion should be modified because according to the post office documentation, informed delivery, businesses can access informed delivery on mailings that they are sending so they can see who is receiving it. And that's the whole thing. It's a marketing tool. It's not available to, it's only available to residential addresses and PO boxes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ms. Bertinio, please. Rusty, if you have your hand raised, you can just press unmute and you should be able to talk since you're a panelist. Mr.
Mr.
Cleaver.
Belt, yeah, I don't know. if it keeps- Mr. Belt, can you hear us? He's listed as a,
Yeah, I'm back. I got
Okay.
bumped off somehow. I got interruption and I had to call back in. So I'm back.
okay.
Do you have a question on that, Mr. Belts?
No, I just wanted to make sure I could vote.
Okay, roll call vote, Ms. Pertinio, please.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
No.
Mr. Stephen Holland, is he in? He's not in. Absent. Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
I'm going to say no, only on the fact that it's going to Palmerton. So no.
Ms. Barbara Bose,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belt,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
I would like to see it in Lehighton as well, but I'll vote yes anyway.
6 yes to no, motion passes.
Okay, on to the next one, management of the suggestion box. I need a motion and a second to assign a director the authority to manage the suggestion box, PO box. Receive informed delivery notification, forward the same within 48 hours to the rest of the board. Pick up all mail prior to the scheduled board meetings and provide a summarized report of the suggestions in the regular board meeting. Section 6 of communications in the agenda. And provide each board member with a copy of all communications received in the suggestion box. The item that I have questioned, I need a motion and a second, please.
Mr. Stern, this is Rita. Mr. Cleaver, can you possibly get us back to the agenda?
Yes, give me,
So moved.
are you able to see the agenda?
Yes, thank you.
I apologize for that. It was.
I have a motion by Mr. Bradley,
I'll second that.
second by Ms. Beers. Questions on the motion?
Yeah, I have a question on the motion. Again, I think with board members' emails and everyone's being public, I don't know why any of these suggestions or anything go to the entire board at the same time. So everyone's getting the same information at the same time for this. And the other part of it is too, I would like to see it be included in the board packets the Thursday afternoon when they go out, instead of 48 hours before the board meeting, because you have the weekend there. If there's information that, you know, we may need to have, we would like some more time to be able to, you know, research and try and get information related to maybe one of the topics or a concern that may come up as well. So I just think having it by that Thursday gives us at least more time to do any type of review or a collection of data if needed.
I can appreciate that concern, Mr. Cleaver. I feel that we will find that within this district, that the Thursday before the board meeting is what I want to call a little truncated for even the board to review all the information. I think all of that data is going to get moved up to about the 15th of the month so that everybody has plenty of time to review all documents, the agenda, and the motions on the agenda, and have it as a living document on board docs like it's available to be, so that adjustments can be made and things cannot be blocked. And that way everything will be lawfully transparent. Thank you.
Mr. Bradley, I think you would find the issue with payment of bills by doing it that far in advance.
I think if we work together with all of our vendors, I think if we work together with the administration, I feel that we
Mr. Eric,
definitely
would you
can.
please explain to Mr. Bradley how that works for the better understanding for him?
I was talking there, Mr. Cleaver. You don't have to cut me off. I was saying that I
apologize,
bet,
Mr.
I think we
Bradley.
can.
That's totally my fault.
Yeah, no problem. So I think that we can work together with our vendors and our administration to ensure that the bills are paid on time. The only ones that I think that will be truncated to the end would be things like payroll and some other ones that now will allow that Thursday release to be less burdensome to the board. Thank you.
Mr. Rarick, would you address his thought process?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of bills we don't actually receive at that point in time. So it would be very difficult for us to get bills into the system by the 15th for anybody to view. A lot of times we're still processing bills and payments to vendors the day before we actually produce the board packet. So my concern is if that be the case, that we have to do it by the 15th, we will start to begin having late payments to vendors, which will result in charges to the school district that are just unwarranted.
Mr. Rarick, are you saying that you're receiving a bill on a Wednesday before a board meeting, and then if it doesn't get approved by the Monday of the board meeting, that you're going to be late in paying that bill? Is that what you just said?
Mr. Bradley, what I said was for us to get them on the board meeting packet, it would be difficult to have all of the bills in by the 15th to be presented with the packet, which means bills would have to be pushed to the following board meeting to get approved to be paid.
Thank you, Mr. Rarick, for that explanation.
I guess my question on the motion is, who is the person who's going to be chartered with managing this PO box? It doesn't state anything in the motion about, and there's nothing on the agenda to who would be managing that box. So, I mean, we can proceed with this motion on this vote, but it won't have a identified board member to manage the box.
One way to do that would be to ask for a list of volunteers that would be willing to do it, and then someone can volunteer from there. I mean, I'd be willing to do it, but I'm only going to be on the board for another month or so.
Any other questions by any board member?
Does anyone else want to volunteer to go down to Palmerton once a month or so and pick up this mail from our stakeholders? Is one of our requirements of being public servants.
Why do you need informed delivery if you're going to pick it up once a month?
See, that's
informed delivery was to make it more of a timely pickup.
It could be for you, Larry. That's great. Let me explain why I thought it was important. So
I understand its importance. I don't understand what you just said, that it would be once a month that somebody's going to go down and pick something up.
I know, Larry. If you can wait a second, I'll explain it. The benefit of informed delivery is so that we now know how many are supposed to be in there. It's a check and a balance. It's a trust and verify process. It's the check and balances that occur when you have a number of board members doing a task for the public. That's how it works. It's accountability, Larry.
Mr. Bradley, you know, your ideas of conspiracy is just beyond belief. So that's the end of my comment. Any other comments from any other board members?
I'll make one. My idea is not necessarily the word conspiracy. I think we got to look at accountability, Larry. And if we look at this from a Auditor General standpoint and the amount of consternation that occurred from the actions of board members over this last couple of years, and then you look at the policies that we are currently needing to redo that are decade old, that we had new laws for, it's just accountability, Larry. Until this board acts as a professional board and it acts as accountable, you're going to have a lot of consternation. And I think that's one of the problems that you have. I think you created the machine that you hated. But now that the board has been modified to a more moral board, I don't think you're going to have those issues, and it's just effortless. Thank you.
Any other comments?
This is Rita. I know this is not going to be a popular suggestion, but I feel very strongly that perhaps Mr. Rarick could pick up these things. I mean, we trust him with every dollar in the school district. We all know him, and we know he's done so many good things to help us along. I trust him completely to bring back the correct number of suggestions. That way, we don't have either faction of the board being in control, because no matter which way you feel, someone is going to have control. And I feel very strongly that it should not be a board member.
And again, Rita, your oath of office has a responsibility that you oversee the administration. This is an access, and our policy requires that the stakeholders have access to their public officials, to their government board. Just like when we trust and verify every report that's created by the administration, and where Steve Holland said he was duped by our administration, it's very important that a volunteer, someone that swore an oath to the public, receives the public information and then gives it to the board. If you feel, for whatever reason, that there might be a faction or people that are not going to be trustworthy, I would then again refer back to the Auditor General's report, where we have had board members that failed to honor their oath. These are character issues. I don't think we're going to have that anymore. I think this community is going to put people on the board that don't have these character issues. It's been proven so far. And I think if we can continue down that positive path, you're going to find that you're not going to have these issues that you feel occur so vehemently. And I would agree. They're there. I think we've corrected them. They're gone. And it's time to move on. Let the board do their job. Oversee the administration.
This is Joy.
I'm sorry, Joy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, if everyone is okay with it, I will volunteer to do this thing.
Awesome.
Great.
Perfect candidate.
That's fine. So we're gonna, if, I guess, Ms. Beers, you seconded the motion and Mr. Bradley first, so you will both allow to assign Joy Beers the authority instead of a director. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
I think it's better to make this more precise and, I mean, let's read this carefully. Prior to the scheduled board meeting, I mean, do we want to say the Thursday, the Friday before the board meeting? Do we want to add that also to make things very clear?
I think maybe it'd be appropriate to say, add the correspondence received as part of the board packet.
So perhaps the Monday before the board meeting.
As part of the packet, Ms. Bose.
Yes.
Whenever the packet is created, this information received for that time period will be part of the packet.
Well, if she volunteers and she picks it up the Monday before, that will give it plenty of time to be ready for the packet.
Yep, that's fine.
I guess this question I have too is for Mr. Bradley. Upon your discussion with Palmerton, what is the cost for the PO box? Usually there's a monthly fee. I'm not sure that was.
It's roughly $70 per year.
But do you have, we're just trying to verify, is that actual the cost? Because I don't want it to be surprising.
$70 per year, sir, per year.
$70 per year for this PO box.
For a PO box, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we'll probably need that for our records too, moving forward. So we have that.
Informed delivery is free.
I think it depends on the size of the box that you get.
Yeah, I'm just looking for, so I mean, we're putting a cost out there, and I know it may not be, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that, but I still want to, as trust and verify that is the accurate cost for this.
Well, it may not be exactly that, but it may be.
So we don't know how much it costs then?
No, we do. It is $70 per year.
Okay.
If you're worried about, if you're worried about the finances of a $40 million
Mr. Bradley,
district,
I thought
I'm
every
asking,
penny
don't
counts,
shut me off.
correct,
Yep,
Mr. Bradley?
I agree. Hold on. So if you're concerned about our $40 million of collected taxpayer money dispersed each and every year to be verified, I will personally donate $100 to ensure that our public has an opportunity to give input and suggestions to their government board to save some of that $40 million. And I noticed that by, hold on, I'm still finishing. I know, I did, and I verified it. That's why I'm willing to
$70.
Yep, I'm willing to put it up. Yep, exactly right. And then at the same time, I did the math on what just Wayne Wentz's resignation saved me.
Mr. Bradley, it was a simple question.
I know, and I'll give you a simple answer.
$70.
So the resignation of Wayne
We will
Wentz.
trust that you.
Bradley, please.
Hold on, I'm
will
giving my.
trust
We don't have to, you don't have to denigrate another board
not
member, even though
denigrating.
he's not on the board anymore. Just
I'm not
drop it,
denigrating. I'm
please.
making the statement of
Drop
how
it,
much it
please.
saved us.
Can we do a roll call vote, Mr. Stern? Because again, it turned a simple question of, wanting to know the amount turns into something else.
I think what we need to do is pick up the mail prior to scheduled board meeting, provide a summarized report of suggestions of regular board meeting section, blah, blah, blah. Provide each board member a copy, received in the projection box in their board packet. So the two addendums to this is to assign Joy Beers the authority and provide each board member with a copy of all communications received in the suggestion box in the board packet. Mr. Bradley, are you okay with that? Mr. Bradley?
I'm reviewing what the motion was that was on the board. If you're going to change it, you're going to have to allow public comment, but
I understand that. I'm asking you, as you first did the motion, if you are okay with the wording.
I'm good with the wording that we had. I don't know why you're trying to change it. Joy?
Because it says nothing about supplying the information as part of the process in the board packet.
It does. It's going to be part of the Section 5 communications on the agenda and provide each board member with a copy of all communications received in a suggestion box. It most definitely says exactly what's going on. I think you're just trying to make it more than it is. It's very simple.
Then we'll leave it as stands with the only changes with the director, Joy Beers. Roll call, Ms. Excuse me, I need any public comment on this particular activity, please.
Mr. Stern, I just want to say one thing. So are we leaving the 48 hours in there or are we taking that out?
I don't think, I think we're leaving it in there, Mrs. Spinelli.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board? Mr. Cleaver, is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this motion?
Mr. Roeder on this motion?
Yes, I just have one concern that I know Mr. Bradley's only going to be on the board for the next 2 months. But seeing how he's had access to this information with previous anonymous letters that have been sent to him, with these that are supposed to be anonymous and stuff like that, is he going to be able to have prior access to this information and use it for more YouTube videos to fuel public social media fires that really aren't there? I just have concerns that more information that, is going to be out there that isn't always necessary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Mr. Roeder, they will have access to this information. Unfortunately, what they do with the information they receive, we have no control over. So anything they get, if they wish to post it on social media or post it anywhere publicly, there's really nothing as a district that we could do to avoid that. So
Okay,
if there's a student's name listed or something and they, put it out there on any type of social media site or YouTube or anything, as a district, we don't have any control over that, unfortunately.
And Mr. Roeder, just so you understand.
So is this really a good idea to be doing? I mean,
yeah, so Mr.
with
Roeder,
all the information that's out there.
So Mr. Roeder,
That is a concern that I personally have. Again, I feel even having a PO box and having to do this is like going back in time. Everyone has access to the board members' emails to where they can email the board any concern or anything they have at any time. Again, an anonymous letter is just that, it's anonymous. So who's to even say that the person's from our district or that, we'll have to, try and figure that part out. At least with email, there's a return email address that you would be able have as well. So there is a big concern as far as I'm concerned as a superintendent with this.
Okay, that's all I was curious. I mean, I'm
Mr.
just
Roeder,
very,
to answer you,
seeing how we've seen this in the past with how Mr. Bradley handles this stuff. I'm just concerned, and being certain people that are on, let's say it the way it is, the 5 against 4, the 4 against 5. I'm just very concerned that we're going to be down the same path that we've been down if we go down this route.
And I do too, is all the other part of it is too, is, depending on when they get this information, I know our administration, our ultimate goal is educate kids and improve our district and everything else. And to respond to anonymous type information will, be more, work, as far as a administration. And let's hope that, it is taken seriously and that people use it for what it's meant to be used for, and not, for administration or other people to go on a chase trying to get information that may or may not be true, because we don't even know who sent it. So we can't even contact the people to try and get more information on the situation. So
I might be wrong in saying this. Don't we already have a system in place in the school with was it the Safe to Say program? Isn't that sort of the same thing?
They could report that, but even in general, again, I think anyone in the community could just, the emails for the board members are public. They could email all the board members their concern or what have you, and then, we can move from there. But this will be someone.
So we're just adding another step for yet another more work involved, and we don't want to hire people, but we're adding more jobs down the line for everybody, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just speaking on behalf of the administration and in the district that, I don't know what this is going to address. Simply that if anyone has a concern or of any type, they could email the board as they have in the past and show up at board meetings. So that's, the same opportunity there as well.
Okay, thank you for your time, sir.
And Jason, you're looking at a nefarious background. The reality is this is just a suggestion box. Maybe someone's going to make
Mr. Bradley.
I
wasn't speaking to you. Take
you
care.
actually are, because I'm on the board. So here you go. And then the second thing is, since I'm going to be coming off the board, anonymous letters were sent to me of heinous activity occurring within the district that I instantly gave to the state police, at which point because we're a mandated reporter, so they're the ones that dispatch that information. And once that those anonymous letters, multiple ones, were presented to board members separate from the administration, we were able to have enough community members sign a petition to the district attorney so that he could assign someone to investigate those matters.
Mr.
And
Bradley,
it was
that is
so Mr. Bradley,
and
you're
secondly,
telling me that the district wasn't doing anything
until
you got yes, you did. You said that the public got enough signatures so the district attorney got involved, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Mr. Bradley, that is so inaccurate.
There was a petition.
So the petition was what got the district.
And we please not turn this into a circus.
Yeah. Basically, it's simple. I think that the board needs
Mr. Bradley,
suggestions from the public. It's part of our policy.
Thank you.
Part of our policy. And Nathan, you can yell all you want, but the reality is, that's it, man. Go look it up.
Mr. Stern.
Roll call vote, Ms. Bertinio, please.
The host just muted me.
Yes, I did, Mr. Bradley.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
No.
Ms. Barbose?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Beltz?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Polar?
Yes, we're gonna have a suggestion box. You might as well see what's in it.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
On to item C. Motion and a second for the board as a whole to instruct the policy committee to seek stakeholder input and review policy and make recommendations necessary to update policy 247 and 249 at the October policy committee meeting currently scheduled for October 6, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. Need a motion and a second, please.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Yeah, motion by Ms. Bose, a second by Mr. Belts. Any comments from the board on this particular motion?
Could we advance the agenda, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a comment. I believe it's 247 is anti-hazing. I'm pulling up my comments here. That was, I believe, put into effect in 2008 and has not been updated. And as was mentioned in the first presentation, there was a new law passed in Pennsylvania, anti-hazing law. After that young man died, I think it was at Penn State. I'm pretty sure that's the one it was named after. Did not the PSBA send information that should have been updated at that time? Because
I'll have to check and see, but we will, get information from them too regarding all, as we have in the past, regarding all these different policies. They do send a number of different ones out, but I don't know directly if it had anything to do with our anti-hazing policy. I have to check because I believe someone at the beginning of the meeting even said it was at the college level, but I will double check those.
no, it says secondary schools as well, 7 through 12. I believe it specifically mentions 7 through 12.
Yeah.
My concern is that's not even a legal reference on that policy. Where you have the laws that it pertains to.
Mm-hmm.
It's on there because it has not been updated since 2008.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get and double check all that information before we present it at the policy meeting.
I would have thought that PSBA would have sent something out. I believe it went into effect. It was passed on October 19th and went into effect 30 days later. I believe it was November 18th or 19th of 2018. That's almost 3 years ago. So I believe that absolutely needs to be updated.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
And Barb, to add to that, I sent an email prior to this meeting to the board to make sure that all of it's been verified. I actually checked with about almost every other district I could find that has board docs on the internet that shows their policies. I got Allentown, Panther Valley, Palmerton. They all updated their policies after that new law came out. Why our school did not makes no sense. They were all provided pretty much the same information from PSBA. Why we skipped it and didn't do it doesn't make any sense. How our board missed it doesn't make sense. How the administration missed it doesn't make sense. But the reality is these things need to be corrected, and they need to be corrected immediately. We've had enough problems. And not only do we need to improve our policy, but that Tim Piazza law that does cover our schools also mandates other requirements, state law requirements to do other things by our district that we are not currently doing, apparently. Now, why our solicitor didn't catch this, why the professional administrators didn't catch this, the fact that we caught it needs to be corrected. And I think the policy change will be the number one, but more importantly, effective. I'm hoping effective tomorrow, somebody reads that email that I sent and gets it corrected on our internet, because to have us not in compliance with state law would be a violation of our oath that we're going to uphold all these state laws. And this is a very important one. We've had a lot of trouble with hazing in our district, and I think it puts us at a liability risk for us to have ignored state law for so long.
Hey,
thank you.
Let's have the vote.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, Ms. Pertinio, please.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Ms. Barbose,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belt,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
8 yes, motion passes.
Okay, on the public comment, Mr. Cleaver?
Hold on, there's one more motion.
I have
Hold on, there's one
Ryan
more motion.
Bowman.
No, there's not any other motion
There
on
is
the
one more
agenda,
motion.
Mr. Bradley.
There is one
Mr.
more motion on the
Bowman?
agenda.
No,
Hold on.
there's not.
Hold on, Ryan. There is one
No,
more
there's
motion.
not. There is not another
There is, it's
motion
on the
on the
screen.
agenda, Mr. Bradley.
There is. Did you remove it, Larry? Because it says.
I did, because it is my duty as president to assign committee members, not yours.
I didn't say it was our
Is
assignment. I'm
Mr.
giving you the
Mr.
authority.
Bradley,
Hold on.
please, we're
You
on
took
to
it out.
public comment.
Nah, but the motion was there. The
Mr.
motion said
Bradley,
for the board as a whole
you
to
don't
instruct
make
Larry
the
Stern,
agenda.
President, to add Barb
Mr.
Bose.
Bradley, I am following our policy with the president making
Yeah,
committee
but Larry,
assignments.
Larry, the
Mr.
entire
Bradley,
board
Mr. Bradley,
authorized this
please.
agenda. The
Mr.
entire,
Bradley,
the board,
please.
the board as a
Mr.
whole.
Bradley, please.
Larry, the board as a whole.
Public
Mr. Cleaver, please mute him.
You're taking a, hold on, you're taking a stance
Mr.
that is
Bowman?
illegal, sir.
Mr. Bowman?
I'm here. I'm just waiting for Mr. Bradley to be done.
I don't think that's going to happen because Larry has boycotted the entire community and silenced them by
Mr.
having it not, by just
Bradley,
authorizing,
we are on
this to be
public
reviewed by the
comment.
policy committee, and then he's leaving
Are
himself
you
on it.
saying, that the board voted on an agenda before
Yes,
the
they
public
did.
meeting?
Yes, they
Okay.
did. 5 of us. 5 people said, we'd like to meet
They
today.
had a vote.
Hold on.
So you're saying
We're
a
saying we wanted
voting-
to meet. They didn't vote, sir. They had a
You
poll.
talk about the sunshine law. I
Wait a
believe
second. I
maybe
agree with you. So now if we're going to have a conversation, let's have it. Ready?
No, what's-
the board as a whole.
Bowman?
Nope. Let me
Please.
tell you, the board as a whole had polled the board, which is legal, to see if they wanted to meet today. And when they decided they wanted to meet, it was on the agenda that was submitted that had
Mr. Bradley.
4 agenda items with 4 motions.
Backpedaling,
Larry
Mr.
chose.
Bradley.
No,
Mr. Bowman?
Larry, no, hold on a second. Hold on a second. He's
Mr. Bowman,
hold
I'm
on.
trying to.
Bradley, if you
He's-
do not
you
silence yourself,
backpedaled,
you
Larry.
will be removed from the
took,
meeting.
Larry, you took your
Mr.
authority that
Bradley.
you don't have. You do not
Mr.
have the
Bradley,
legal authority.
okay, we become the show that we've always wanted to become again. You cannot let someone speak.
No,
Please let
Larry,
Mr.
you
Bowman speak.
took away the rights of the people to speak. There's a whole nother
Mr.
motion.
Bowman?
Mr. Cleaver, I'm going to defer to this question. He does have a legitimate concern at this point because the agenda was made public. The dispute should have been done prior to the agenda being made. I think there needs to be discussion on this agenda item amongst the board members, or at least some kind of vote by the board.
Mr. Bowman, that was his agenda, not the board agendas.
You published, this is the agenda that's
No,
been published.
the agenda we're looking at does not have the motion he's referencing, sir.
The agenda that I have in front of me has the motion on it.
That was his. That is not
was
the
his.
published through the
That's
board
not the
of
public.
Lehighton School District.
But that was the one that 5 board members approved.
How do you approve, Mr.
Because
Bradley?
we all said we wanted to meet
You
on this
can't
agenda,
make a
on
vote
this
on an
agenda for
agenda,
these
Mr.
reasons.
Bradley.
As part of the Sunshine Act, we decided.
Well,
So if you're
maybe
telling
you're reading
me,
the Sunshine Act a little different.
you're
Mr. Bowman, do you have
you're not
anything
reading it
else?
differently, sir. You took the liberty.
I do,
to
Mr.
reject the
Cleaver,
people
but I
from
think
having
this
the right
needs
to
to
have
be
this.
resolved.
It is resolved. It is removed.
Dave, can I say something? Larry is following the policy. Let it go.
Larry is not following the policy. He doesn't have the right to pull things off the agenda that the board approved.
Mr. Bowman?
Right? Am I going to be interrupted by Mr. Bradley, or can I speak? Can I speak?
I'm hoping you may be able to speak, Mr. Bowman.
Sure, go ahead.
All right.
I'll do
Thank you.
mine at the end.
All right. So I guess my first question here as a public comment is this. Number one, I clearly in an email objected as a parent within the school district that this was done via Zoom. Mr. Stern, specifically to Mr. Stern, not Mr. Bradley, Mr. Stern as a board president, could you explain to me why this board meeting that was called was held via Zoom and not public?
Mr. Bowman, I will even say my concern is the request that I made for the individuals in the audience at the last board meeting to have face coverings on was completely ignored. And we do have a approved health and safety plan as well. So really for the safety of my staff and everyone in attendance, I think until people wear their face masks as requested, that we continue with Zoom board meetings for the safety of our staff, because I cannot afford to have more staff missing because individuals were not following our safety plan. So I could say that even me as superintendent, I have some concerns as well for safety of having in-person meetings. And I'm hoping that next meeting, everyone could follow that and be prepared and have a face covering on.
Okay. So my second thing here is I'm quite impressed with the number of students and parents and guardians who have reached out as far as SAP is concerned. Certainly since I've been in the school district and graduated, seems that things have improved greatly with their services that are provided to the students. Certainly your explanation, Mr. Cleaver, confirms what I thought was that the metrics reporting data is not up to snuff with the situations that the district deals with. And certainly it's great to see that the students are getting the help that they needed. The one question I did have is, is there a cost associated with those referrals?
There is a cost associated with the service that Monroe, Carbon, and Pike do for the year. That is paid through one of the grants that we receive, and I could get that exact amount for you.
Okay.
And that's based upon service too, hours that we request.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I understand that. And finally, I think the other thing was, if you, Mr. Claver, can you scroll up the agenda here? I can't remember everything. There were so many things. Scroll down.
All right.
Could, please.
Yep.
No, I think this is the next one, the final one.
Oh,
no,
the other way.
Yeah, final one. Yeah, the other way. Yeah.
Apologize.
Okay. The policy, the policy review, certainly, I think that there's, obviously it does warrant a review. I guess my question here is to better understand this process. So when the policy committee either reviews a policy or indoctrinates a new policy, what is the formal procedure behind that? So my thought process here is that the policy goes from the policy committee to the superintendent for review to the solicitor. If there's any changes that are needed or made, it goes back to the policy committee review for those suggestions and changes, and goes through that same process. Am I correct on that?
The way it comes through is the administration presents the policy changes or new policies even to the board, to policy committee, excuse me. Those are all reviewed by administration and council, PSBA, and different other law groups as well. And they're presented to the policy committee. If they're approved for first reading for public view, there's actually a whole month until the next policy committee. And that same policy reviewed again for recommendation to the board for second reading and approval. So there's actually almost a 3-month process before any policy is officially approved. And there's about a 2-month review time for each policy.
All right. So there's time to review this stuff and public participation and public comment and so forth.
Yeah, there's actually two policy meetings and 1 board meeting, well, 2 board meetings really, because that's the adoption of that policy too. So really there's 4 different opportunities for the public to comment on 1 policy.
So what I take from tonight's presentation is this. Well, overall, yes, there's policies that need to be reviewed, but my biggest question in this, what I thought we were going to get to, I think, which is a bigger issue here is that we have had isolated incidences. There was a parent that came forward in January that her child was injured and put in the pediatric ICU. There was a hazing incident with a broomstick. There's been other, bomb threats and so forth like that. I guess my question here is that while some of these isolated incidences may have been embellished due to whatever circumstances, I guess the whole thing that I'm wondering as a parent is, well, the school reviews, the administration and the board reviews those incidences that have occurred. I guess my question here is, do these incidences as a learning curve? I take, some of what I've learned in the military. If we have an incident, we do an after action review. We look at what, where, why, when, and how. How did this happen? What can we do? What was good? What was bad? Et cetera, et cetera. So I guess my question here is, maybe do these isolated incidences, do they warrant a third-party investigation to look at all the factors that are all involved in the incident, in order to maybe better clarify our policies or our procedures or how we deal with things? Maybe there's additional education that needs to be provided to the administration or the teachers or even the school board. And I guess that's one of my questions, and I was hoping that we would be getting into those issues. And my final thing is Mr. Roeder had brought up a good point with the reference to the management of the suggestion box, the idea of confidentiality. Mr. Cleaver, I sent you an email. I made a request to you last week. I don't know why you haven't responded. Again, you're probably busy. It's the beginning of the school year, whatever. In reference to a confidentiality policy. I think our courts have established, I'm not a lawyer, but I think if you go back to Mickey Angstad from Panther Valley, when he was breaching information to the public through a website, I think there was censures that could be taken against him in those instances. But I guess my question here is, why hasn't there, or if there is, why is the school board, along with the administration and the school teachers, why are they not sanctioned to confidentiality?
I don't know exactly, the email you're referring to, but I could tell you that since, that discussion, I'm actually on my desk. I have been looking at different confidentiality agreements that are out there. Actually, we emailed the IU for examples, Ripon Area School District, even though it's in Wisconsin, we were looking at different things. So from that discussion, we are looking at a confidentiality type agreement. We currently do not have one. The only confidentiality agreement we have is for interviews. But as far as like the positions that are in the district, we currently do not have any type of confidentiality agreement that they sign regarding their expectations. So there's really no policy. There's confidentiality policy for students, but as far as employees and overall general confidentiality, we do not have anything.
Well, I think there needs to certainly be a confidentiality policy within the district in order to ensure that while the suggestion box is there for people to anonymously push forth information to the school board, certainly it does not warrant and give the idea to the school board members to go out there and discuss that information publicly, particularly a student. And I think if we, again, maybe this is something that the solicitor needs to look at, what was taken out of the Mickey Angstad opinion from Judge Matika. I think there's certainly some repercussions that seems to have come out of that, and with censoring board members who put that information out there. But otherwise, The other final thing that I have is I would really suggest to the board that maybe in past practices, from my understanding, that there's been more of a parent participation of like a parent ad hoc committee in the past. I don't recall that, but certainly I think getting the perspective of parents, while the administration sees one thing, teachers see one thing, parents also see another thing. And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, it's about the students and how to help them. And certainly I would ask the school board to look at that idea. Certainly I would more than gladly participate in something of that nature. But I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Kraus?
Prior to that, Mr. Cleaver, I'd like to make sure that everyone adheres to the 3-minute policy. that
Mr.
we have
Kraus?
in place for courtesy of the floor.
Mr. Kraus, are you able to hear us?
Inadvertent, hit the button. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. There's no other request for comment at this time, the public?
Please scroll the agenda, please.
I'd like, hold on a second, Larry, before you go further, I'd like to voice my concern about your actions as president, not only unilaterally deciding that this is going to be a Zoom meeting without even consulting your board and adjusting the agenda that was presented without consulting your board, I think was an error on your part. I think it was arrogant, and I don't think you should do it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. I will, at this time, I would like a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Spinelli, a second by Ms. Beers. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much for your attendance this evening. And we will see you all again at the meetings next week if you so choose. Other than that, we'll see you at our next regular scheduled board meeting in October. Bye-bye.